Hello there, everyone. Whoop. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Metagame, the live streaming YouTube programming where we not only talk about board games, but sometimes we talk about talking about board games. And I do not talk about these board games all by myself because, as always, I am joined by the live streaming YouTube chat window and all of the participants therein. So what I'm going to do is I am going to check the chat window just to make sure that we're streaming and the audio and video is good, which it looks like we are. Thank you, everybody. And this is kind of a special episode. Today, sometimes on the Metagame, like I said, we talk about board games. Sometimes we talk about making media and talking about board games. Some days we wax philosophical about games. Some days we get into some really good discussions. But this is our 50th episode of the Metagame. And to celebrate this arbitrary milestone, today we're going to have some fun. Today we're going to play a couple of games, and we may even have a prize out there for one of the people that's in our chat right now. So today's show is going to be a little bit different in that we're going to be playing these games. So the first half of the show, what we're going to do is we're going to revisit kind of a discussion type game that we played a couple weeks ago, where we took public domain ideas in order to come up with new themes for board games, to come up with new game mechanisms, new game ideas, new board game themes. I took a list of public domain IPs, intellectual properties, and a list of different game mechanisms, and we rolled some dice to shuffle those together, and then we collaborated to come up with ideas for board games that don't exist yet that could be based on those ideas. And the conversation, it was actually a really interesting, fun game. It was a fun conversation. And so I thought, I'm going to save it for a special occasion to do again. And 50th episode, there's our special occasion right there. And hey, speaking of special things with the 50th episode, I wanted to mention that another neat thing happened this week before we get to the fun and the festivities. I wanted to share something with you that you may not have known because it happened just a couple days ago. First of all, I want to mention that this episode and most all videos on Pair of Dice Paradise are sponsored in part by our awesome friends over at Top Shelf Gamer. Over here, this one. Top Shelf Gamer, who develop a lot of really neat custom components. And this year will be providing me with game upgrades and components for me to make videos to kind of show about blinging out games. I'll be working on videos with about that in conjunction with them. In addition to Top Shelf Gamer, though, one thing you might not know is that my friendly local game shop, my FLGS, is Fun Again Games. Right here, they have two actual retail locations in addition to their website. One of their two retail locations is in my hometown in Eugene, Oregon, and the other one is also in Oregon, a couple hours down the road. And so after kind of stumbling around each other in the dark and realizing, hey, we both exist in this same area, we had some discussions, and Fun Again Games is also going to become a sponsor of Pair of Dice Paradise. And whereas Top Shelf Gamer is providing components and things for me to talk about, Fun Again Games is actually going to be providing some more board games and stuff. So they'll be providing some games and things for me to talk about as well, which is going to help the show out quite a bit, because every little thing that can be done like that for the show to reduce expenses or bring in a little bit more that way, it all helps. It eases the burden a little bit of the time and the work that the production takes. So I want to say thanks to Top Shelf Gamer, who continues to be awesome, and welcome to Fun Again Games, who I'm looking forward to being awesome with. Okay, so with that neat news out of the way, let me explain how this game is going to work. Now, what like I mentioned, I have a list of public domain intellectual properties. So these are public domain, meaning that anyone can use these ideas freely in any book, movie, or board game that you develop. So if we were to develop the next greatest board game using one of these characters or settings, they're public domain, so we could totally go do it. Okay? So we can get inventive and we can run with anything awesome that we come up with. The other thing is I have a list of different mechanisms, like everything from deck building to area movement to memory games to paper and pencil games, whatever. I just have a whole list. So I'm going to roll a dice to randomly select a public domain IP, and I'm going to roll another dice to randomly select the activity. Then what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm collectively, and we're going to pitch out some board game ideas. So once the IP and the mechanism is selected, if you have an idea that you want to pitch, a board game that uses these things that you want to pitch, put it in the comments and add the hashtag TMG for the metagame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my web browser's search tool as always. I'm going to search for that hashtag. And the comments, the posts that have that hashtag are going to rise to the top, but are going to be highlighted, so I'll be able to see those. So if you have a pitch for one of these games that you want to do, use that hashtag, and then we'll review it and we'll discuss it. And we'll see how many of these we can do. We'll do this kind of for the first half of the show. And then for the second half of the show, we're going to switch to a different game that I developed custom specifically for this episode, for this show. So let me see if I got everything here. Looks like I do. All right. We have our lists. So I'm going to roll up, see if I can find actually another dice I was looking for. Oh. I also have my mega 20-sided dice, which wasn't cooperating. So let's roll up this big guy. And let's see, first of all, number 18 on my list of intellectual properties that we will be pitching is going to be Moby Dick. And this is an excellent time to remind everyone that this is a family-friendly program. But Moby Dick, the tale of Ahab and his great white whale, an excellent intellectual property. So in this board game based on Moby Dick, our challenge is to create a board game. Oh, okay. It's a crayon rail system game. There were these games that a lot of train games, you would actually take crayons and you have lots of points on the board, almost like one of those games with all those dots, and you take turns making lines to fill in boxes. And when you create a box, you put your initials in it, and whoever gets the most boxes at the end wins. Is these crayon rail games, you actually would have all these dots, and you would take crayons and actually make lines to make your rail lines or your territory outlines or whatever you have. So there you have the idea of we have the crayon rail system materials in a warehouse sitting there ready for us to use. And so all we got to do now, and the Moby Dick license has become available. So now we, in our little marketing cubicle, need to come up with the next best board game idea that takes all of our crayon rail system board game components and intertwines it with that Moby Dick intellectual property. So let's go over to the chat window, and let's make it as large as possible while we do it accidentally. Let's fix that. And let me search for our hashtag, and let's get things started. Okay, and I apologize. I am going to skip over some of the comments that were posted before the show began that are just kind of hellos and how do you do's and whatnot. I'm going to try and find where the discussion on this begins. And it looks like the discussion begins with Kabuki, nice coincidence there, who usually is our first commenter, who basically also mentions that this is a spin down die, not a proper rolling dice. I refuse to live by anyone's arbitrary rules. And this may be a spin down dice, but in the spirit of Ahab, who took what life gave him and grabbed it and lived it to the fullest, I'm doing that with the spin down dice. So I'm already in the spirit of Moby Dick there by embracing that nonconformity. Okay. While we wait for more comments to pop in, let's see if I can come up with one here, because the easiest approach, of course, would be to simply use the crayon rail system to mark the migration patterns of the whales that you're hunting as Ahab. Of course, you don't want to just go hunt any whale, right? You're looking for a specific one. You're looking for Moby Dick, who wronged you and borrowed your lawnmower and never gave it back. But so what you got to do is, probably in my version of this game, you would use the crayon rail system. The players would be creating and altering. There'd probably be a lot of erasing going on, creating and altering these migratory patterns for these different whales. And one of these migration patterns has the whale specifically that Ahab is looking for, so what you got to do then is you have to probably find out maybe the different migration trails are color-coded, so you have a little bit of social deduction maybe going on. Maybe one player plays Ahab, and the other players each play a whale. In fact, even to make it more challenging, all the other players they have to speak out loud to each other, but they can only speak to each other in whale song. So the players are shuffling around Moby Dick in their pods. Maybe each player has a hand of cards as well, and they're drawing their paths. And, they are almost like Old Maid or something, passing around Moby Dick, trying to shuffle him around to the different players, while Ahab's trying to deduce this. But the other players can only talk to each other in whale song. Ooh, ooh. And they have to try and keep Moby Dick hidden and make their migration trails while Ahab is sailing his little boat meeple, which I'm sure we'd make a nice elaborate, maybe even a wooden one. We'll get something made by Broken Token or something. And we will have him sailing his boat around. And it sounds like this game takes a lot of different mechanisms in addition to the crayon rail system, and is smashing them together. Almost like a 90s superhero movie where they just throw everything in the kitchen sink into it. So really, I'm wondering if this game would turn out to be as big a piece of garbage as it's starting to sound like it would be. But it's possible. So while I mentally fine-tune my own idea, let's pop over to the chat now to see what better ideas all of you guys have brought to the table. All right. Kabuki Kid starts us off with the ideas as well, saying, would a player play as a whale, like a hidden movement game? Well, there we go. I think that's got to be part of it, because both you and I both came up with that same question. The players playing the parts of the whales. So yes, I think that's a given. I think that's something that we're going to have to work into it. So yeah, I think we're on the same track there. Mark joins us to contribute that he agrees it can be a hidden movement type of game where Moby Dick is moving hidden and everyone else is trying to move and find him. Well, there we go. Another consensus we have going on here. So maybe this big mishmash of different game mechanisms actually isn't a giant steaming hunk of garbage. Maybe my idea is being fleshed out by everyone, and maybe there is some merit here. So yeah, I think players playing as the whales, hidden movement, moving the whale around secretly, certainly, Mark. So yeah, let's. I think we got a consensus going there. So Pith let's move on to the next comment, which is from Pith, who says, who's just commenting on the episode, who chimes in to say, "Yay, a special episode! Will this also be a conclusion to the Elephant Saga?" No, not that special, I'm afraid. No sagas in any way will be concluded in this episode. I apologize. Hopefully, the next special episode will conclude some sagas. Let's continue on here. More inside jokes and backwards references here by Kabuki again, who asks, how big of a microwave would be needed to cook an intact whale? Thanks, guys. Now, would that be the end game? Once Ahab finds the whale he's looking for, it would not be popular, and it definitely not be condoned. But what's Ahab going to do with this whale? And would it involve having to determine how to cook the whale in a microwave? Again, I don't know how popular that would be. That might be a faux pas to release that as the game. What was it? New Bedford was a game about historical whaling, and that game was very ill received by a lot of people, understandably so, because whaling is a very sensitive subject. So I'm thinking that maybe we should put the microwaving the whale on the back burner, so to speak, and maybe come up with a different end game resolution, a different way to determine the winner. All right, let's get a few more comments on this one. Let me re-highlight the comments, and they keep jumping upwards. All right, here we go. Here's the other cluster. Sasha chimes in to mention, read the chart again. Sasha actually says, read the chart again. The ideas say you rolled hidden movement for the mechanism, which sounds like so much more fun. I want to just know where the chart is posted at. Sasha, you've boggled me. And so my world right now is a mix of letters in a small plastic tin. So, but I'm going to continue on here to the next comment by Kabuki, who mentions that, yes, you agree, listening for the whale song would almost be like a submarine hunt game where you would ping with your sonar. Exactly. Perhaps even, oh, wait a minute, Crayon rail system? Doesn't the current party game Captain Sonar, doesn't that use dry erase markers, which I think is a close enough connection that dry erase and a Crayon rail system could be considered the same category of game. And if you disagree, well, I will hold firmly to my conviction on this so we can discuss and deliberate the merits of whether whiteboard, dry erase, and Crayon are the same. We can discuss that in a later episode or in the comments down below. But since I steadfastly conform to this conviction that dry erase would work, I'm wondering if maybe this whole whaling thing could be a variant or expansion for Captain Sonar. Perhaps you're right, Kabuki. Perhaps we don't need to go through all the effort of developing a custom game like this from scratch. Perhaps we could just pitch this to the publisher of Captain Sonar, and this would be a variant or the next expansion. Poof. It's like money on the shelf. It's just, it writes itself. 3 more comments here, and then we'll move on to the next roll. Kabuki also mentions that I would demand whale roleplay, where a player has to stand up and sing like a whale during those phases. All right, I can see that. I can see a game this heavy and a game this substantial. Yes, I could see it requiring that level of commitment by the players. So yes, definitely stand up and sing like a whale during those phases. I totally agree with that. Just put it in the rule book. Brian mentions, how about instead of tracking whale movements on a board, Moby Dick is drawing movement tracking whale. The whale can't cross Moby's paths, and Moby has time/a turn limit to trap the whale. It almost sounds, Brian, like you are describing the light cycles game from the old Tron arcade game, where you'd have the light cycles that would leave a trail of light behind them as they drove around the board, and you would try to box in your opponent and have them eventually crash into the little light walls that you were creating with your light cycle. If that is the case, except applying it to Moby Dick whaling scenario, I think that is brilliant. I think it would be brilliant too if the whales were somehow even, or Ahab, whoever, was actually creating walls of light in the ocean while they do it. But that sort of boxing in, that takes the whole concept of the Crayon rail system game and actually makes a version of it that is more true to the source material there, more true to the mechanisms. So yes, I think that definitely, that could be like the little mini spin-off game, perhaps a little dice game that's inevitably made off of the main board game. But yes, I'll cut you in on the inevitable profits from that version, Brian, definitely. That's cool. I like that. That fits. It fits the theme too. And finally, we will get a thing from Brian here. Brian mentions that that the character limit does make it hard to pitch a game. That is true. And if you run into the character limit, when I go through these, what's nice is we usually have enough of a lag between us that you can usually post multiple posts in the chat if you want to. And by the time I'm catching up, going through these, I do kind of visually scan ahead a couple posts to see if someone has posted something like into 2 chats or more. So if you hit the character limit, feel free. The other part of that is, there is a thing called an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch for product or something is supposed to be a pitch that you could give someone in the course of a short elevator ride from one floor to the next. So perhaps the elevator pitch we're going for needs to be 200 characters or less. I'm going to say I don't know. We'll find out, though. What I do know is I'm going to take my perfectly sufficient 20-sided dice, which is absolutely fine to use for this game. I'm going to take this spin down dice. I'm going to roll up the next one. So I apologize for anyone's ideas haven't got to yet, but we're going to keep things going with the next one. Maybe we'll do 2 more and then we'll switch to the next game. So the public IP that we are using now, keeping with the nautical themes, is Long John Silver, who I admit I know very little about, except that it is a public domain intellectual property, and he eventually started a chain of restaurants. So you got that whole thing going for us there. That gives us lots of things, lots of play. And number 17, wow. And also, 17, sorry. Whoop. Also, hand management. So we got Long John Silver and hand management. So Long John Silver, and if anyone in the chat wants to give us a brief 200 character or less synopsis on exactly what the story is behind Long John Silver, I would appreciate it, because right now I'm leaning towards the restaurant aspect of this. Because as you know, Long John Silver's is also a quality seafood restaurant. Not a sponsor, but still. So I'm thinking that the hand management aspect, this would be a perfect corporate tie-in game. We've seen Gale Force 9 take what used to be taboo, television intellectual properties, and turn them into fantastic games. What with their Sons of Anarchy, Firefly, and etc. They've taken, and Spartacus, great game there. They've taken what used to be taboo, making a game off of a television intellectual property, and they have made quality games out of it. So I think that this Long John Silver's game gives us the perfect opportunity to prove to the board game world that we can take it up to the next level together. We can make a successful game based on a chain of seafood restaurants. Yes, restaurant franchises are probably the next big hotbed of where board game games are going to come from. Hand management, it's simple. It's absolutely simple. The hand would represent all the items on the menu. And everyone will have an asymmetrical player power. For example, I may be lactose intolerant, or I am looking for something gluten-free, or I am looking for something vegan, which will be a challenge at a seafood restaurant, perhaps. So each player has this asymmetrical, let's say it's almost going to be like Dead of Winter. Each player is not only going to have their asymmetrical player powers, but a hidden objective. I want gluten-free. So they're going to have their secret objectives, and they're going to have hands of cards representing all of the items on the menu. And it's going to turn the meal into a very suspicious experience full of paranoid deliberation as you try to figure out who's going to eat what. You don't know what everyone, am I allergic to soy? Is my player to my left allergic to soy? I don't know, but perhaps I have a soy milk card and I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to manage my hand to try and sabotage everyone else's meal, and I'm going to try and have the best meal. And why? Because the winner is the person who gets out of having to split the check. That's how, and whoever is the least sick at the end of the game, due to the way they manage their hand of cards, whoever is the least sick is the one who is able to convince everyone else to split the check, and they bug out because they're strong and healthy enough to get out of paying the check. And this, I think that any restaurant, Long John Silver's or not, this could be adapted to any restaurant. So we could have like the next love letter here. We could rebrand this thing every other week for every single restaurant that's out there. Boom. Instant classic everywhere. Every big box retailer will have a copy of this game. There you go. Okay. Let's Whale Wars. Someone in the chat posted Whale Wars, which caught my eye as I was going back to the chat here. But let's go and find out what you guys came up with as well about our incredible Long John Silver's board game experience. So whales. Captain Sonar, I apologize. These comments are fantastic, by the way. I wish I could go into all of these in detail. Rowboats. Okay. We're back to Whale Wars. Here we go. Excellent. Okay. We have reached the Long John Silver's portion of the chat. Anyone following along at this during the live streaming of the show, I encourage you to read through all of the incredibly awesome suggestions that are in the chat, because I'm just not going to be able to do them justice by going over all of them, but I'm just skimming them as I'm finding where we left off in the chat. There's just some excellent ones that already caught my eye. Whale Wall Wars or whatever that one was would be awesome. But getting back to our next big hit based on the Long John Silver's intellectual property, let's continue with Brian's suggestion. Brian says, a game like Bonanza. Bonanza style non-card, but in Bonanza, players get a hand of cards and you cannot move your cards around in your hand. It's part of its hand management is you have to keep your cards in your hand in the exact order that you get them. No moving them around. So he's mentioning a Bonanza style non-card reorganization. You can use any cards at any time, but as they slide through the hand, they go bad and eventually they spoil. Okay, so you got to feed people happily without making them sick. Oh, okay, so here we have like the alternate universe version of my pitch, where instead of trying to make everyone else sick, Brian is being more altruistic and trying not to make anyone sick. And you know what, Brian, I'm thinking that when we develop these games, because it's inevitable now, it's such a great idea. When we develop these games, we're going to have to create two versions. A version where you're trying to make everyone sick, and your version where you're trying not to make anybody sick. And we have to do some A/B testing. Release both into a small segment of the market, sell them side by side, have them play tested side by side, and see which one is preferable. Because I'm holding out hope for humanity that your version would be the preferred one, but I'm keeping my version in the mix just in case that dark side of humanity rears its head and that's the one people prefer. And we'll just keep our options open that way. But excellent contribution there, Brian. You've given me a whole new avenue, a whole new market segment that we can pitch this to. The next comment on this comes from Mike Jones, who mentions, what about a card game version of Tapper, but using Long John Silver's? Your hand has only 4 cards and you have to make sets of orders for people. But you do it by having your opponent lay down a card. And you try to match its color and be the first to make a full meal, which eliminates a player. There. Another lame pirate card game, just what we need. It would probably sell well, though. And Mike Jones actually had another couple of comments here that were tacked on. Or it could be used as a unique promotion. You seriously don't give me no time to shop. You can get a good artist copy. Great artists steal. That's true. Smart artists don't brag about it, though, Chaz. I never claimed to be smart. Okay. So Mike Jones, that's interesting. The when you mention a card game version of Tapper, my mind goes to the old coin-op arcade game Tapper, where you have several rows of bars and you are a bartender serving drinks to the patrons at the bar, and you actually have to get their drink, slide it down the bar, they drink it, and they slide it back, and you have to continue serving drinks while you catch their mug that they send back to you without it breaking. Is that when you refer to Tapper? I'm hoping that that's what you mean, because now that's where I'm going with this. So a card game version of Tapper, laying down the cards and having creating their whole order. I think that is a really interesting take and twist on it. And all joking and weirdness aside, that actually is an interesting idea for a game, because you have kind of a time element mixed with the hand management, and trying to manage your hands along with a countdown clock of some sort can really up the not the frustration, but the anxiety, the tension in the game. And in a game like that with hand management, having some source of tension in it that keeps it from being too chaotic, is a really nice twist. And the version you described there, I think, would be a possible way of ramping up a little bit of tension without having it be just a panicky mess. So I like that. I actually like that. And so when since you mentioned that smart artists don't brag when they steal ideas, I will not brag when I steal your idea. So let's continue on to the next few before we do one more and we move on to our second game here. Toyota joins us to say his idea for Long John Silver's card game is that you must feed your crew before they mutiny on you, since Long John Silver was the cook. Oh, he was the cook. Thank you. I did not know that. I thought Long John Silver was just a swashbuckler adventure type guy like Indiana Jones on the sea. So, see, again, never claimed to be smart there, Mike Jones. So that's an excellent idea. Feeding your crew before they mutiny on you, since Long John Silver was the cook. That is an excellent idea, not only because it makes sense, in a sense that the rules for that it'd be easier to create the rules because it's a very universal idea, but also it ties both the historical Long John Silver's IP and the restaurant. It ties both of those together. So you got a double whammy of theme. Toyota, that's awesome. Double whammy of theme. You've taken it and you've made the game that much more potent. You've made it that much more accessible because you got both camps of people who only know the story or people who only know the restaurant. You're serving both of them. Serving, literally and figuratively at the same time. So bravo for that excellent contribution to the development of this surely to be incredible game. Okay, it looks like we have like 5 more comments here. And I'm going to go through these and then we'll do one more of these games. Mark mentions again that you can use customer cards in the middle, food cards in your hand with 2 functions, one for the food, and the other function can be some sort of take that mechanism. Oh, we haven't even touched on take that stuff that much. That's true. Where you have to choose how and when to use it. So customer cards in the middle and food cards in your hand. So there, instead of the players being the patrons of the restaurant, you're going to have a random deck potentially to draw some from. That actually will give some really nice replayability to it. I know I like games where there is that sort of randomization in it. It gives games some longevity. So having a deck of customer cards laid out in the middle, I'm getting almost a boss monster vibe off of this. And so, yeah, you could have your customers similar to boss monster being the people entering the dungeon. You could be creating the food, which would be kind of like the rooms and the traps in Dungeon Monster in a way, maybe. But then you also have the spells and other things. So, yeah, I think that we've seen that this type of approach actually could potentially work. I'm thinking there's more here than just a retheming of Boss Monster, but what you described reminds me a little bit of Boss Monster, and I think you could add some new twists on it. So I like that idea as well, Mark. So that was very cool. David joins us. David, his suggestion is a hand management game. Players have decks of cards. Okay, sure. They have decks of cards, including treasure, and they need to use various cards to bury their treasure, therefore protecting it. and steal others' treasure and use crew and parrot abilities, etc. I wasn't sure about your idea until you mentioned parrot abilities. Having parrot abilities be a unique card set or something in that, maybe a especially parrot abilities deck, that's what sold me on it. The parrot abilities. I like it. Now, the other thing about parrot abilities is this still, I think, could work theming it for the restaurant. If everyone in the restaurant had a parrot for some reason, and you had to not only feed the patrons, but also the parrot, there we've put a unique twist on this game that now we're going into, party game territory, crazy party game areas. Anyway, I like the idea of the different decks with the treasures and burying them. Oh no, what's the game called? Not Pirate Loot. Game by Crash Games, an excellent little game that used gems and some cards. It's on my shelf, but my wobbly table is hiding it. I can't remember. Pirate Bay? No, Pirate Den. Pirate Den reminds me a little bit of Pirate Den from Crash Games a couple years ago, and except it sounds like your version uses a little more, kind of flips it around. There, the cards were kind of secondary, but it seems like yours would be more card and deck hand heavy, which would be an interesting variation on the concept of burying your treasure, trying to steal treasure than Pirate Den. So I'd like to see that fleshed out. Also, parrot abilities. So yeah, right there. I think that sells the game alone on that. Okay, let's do a couple more here. A retheme of Tom Vassel's Vicious Fishes. Would Vicious Whales work the same? That is something I will bring up with Tom next time I see him at a convention. We'll see what we can do, because yes, Vicious Whales, while it doesn't rhyme or make nearly as much sense, I think it's worth pitching. And I haven't had Tom yell at me for a while, so that will be a good opportunity to see how many buttons I could push there. And we're going to do JD, who mentions a social game where in each round you have a server going for tips, so you need fresher food, and back of the house trying to move out the old product. Okay, so you have this instant built-in conflict of interest going into the game. You have servers trying to get fresher food served so they get better tips, and back of the house trying to get rid of the old food so they can maintain profitability. The other players are diners, so there's social negotiation. Okay. Now, I have a lot of fun when we do this game, lots of silliness, it's just kind of, hopefully it's entertaining to listen to. But JD, I got to say that I genuinely like that idea. The built-in conflict of interest there. So you have motivation for the players. It seems like a game that potentially could be a larger number of people. You could maybe have it be one of those 8-player games in a way or more, trying to negotiate or get rid of things. It reminds me a little bit of Panic on Wall Street, because you could split everyone into 2 groups and have timed sessions where everyone's working against the clock to achieve their objective for their teams. Oh, that's awesome. I'm low on time to elaborate on it more, but JD, that is an awesome idea, and that's one of the things that makes this game so entertaining, is that every now and then you come up with something that you hadn't thought of before. So that's cool. Very neat. Okay, like I said, I don't have time to elaborate more. We got to do one more quick game. I'm going to scroll my chat window down to the bottom. Sorry. We're going to roll one more time here. Number 20. Ooh, the Headless Horseman. Okay, so here we have the Headless Horseman. What kind of game are we going to build around the Headless Horseman? I rolled 20 again. It's like, this isn't the right type of die to be rolling for this. I need like a different type, but I don't know if they make more than one type of dice other than spin down dice. Anyway, 20. 20 is a memory game. So right here, I don't know exactly what the mechanisms of, or I don't know exactly what the rule set for this game memory game based on the Headless Horseman is, but I do know that the name of the game is going to have to be Don't Lose Your Head, or anything better that anyone else comes up with. So a memory game based on the Headless Horseman. So as what I know about the Headless Horseman is I know mostly from the animated Ichabod Crane TV shows. I don't know if they were full movies or not, but basically the Disney animated stories about Ichabod Crane and his struggles with the Headless Horseman. That's where I am most familiar with the tale. So when I think the Headless Horseman, I think of that big guy on that horse chasing that animated geeky Ichabod Crane. So that's where I'm coming from. So a memory game there, perhaps the Headless Horseman, maybe perhaps you have to remember, all of the different, heads that you have collected. And perhaps you lay down, perhaps we go super simple. Perhaps we take this and we try to create a game, we try to do something that no one else has ever done successfully. We try to create a horror game for kids. So you have basic memory. You have, 2 copies of each person in town, and everyone plays a Headless Horseman because diversity. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to flip over, 2 of the same people. If you can find the match for the person, you will collect them and add them to your little satchel or something. It's, we would need some sort of candy, some kind of toy quality to it. So perhaps each player is given a brightly colored little satchel that they keep these cards in. And it's almost like my first Cthulhu in a way or something, my first, Headless Horseman. And you could have this, whole new, avenue for people. It'd be popular, it'd probably be as popular as it could possibly be at Halloween parties. We might sell 3, which would triple, it's a seasonal product, of course, obviously. So we triple our profits around Halloween time. So we have a built-in seasonal, profit surge. And there you go. I think that, I not only think that there's nothing else I could say about this game idea, I think there's nothing else that I should say about this game idea. So I'm going to go over to the comments real quick. And I apologize. We are quickly running out the clock here on ourselves. So let's go down and lightning round through a couple of posts here. Pirates, Long John Silver, Whales. Okay, Toyota mentions you just need to use the Resistance as a theme using the Headless Horseman. The Resistance. Okay, yes, I could definitely see. Yeah, you got your you have your Ichabod like characters. There are already characters built in. So you have the Headless Horseman, who could be Mordred or something if you're doing like a retheme of Avalon. You have Ichabod and the lady in town that he was smitten with as characters. So yes, you already have a built-in character base for something based on the Resistance, and the whole Grimm's fairy tales horror theme of it definitely could open up a whole new avenue of new mechanisms to be added to the Resistance. Okay. And, Christopher jumps in to mentions, I think it's helping me out with where we are in the chat, saying this is the bottom. I think you're right, though. Definitely with this idea, we are definitely scraping the bottom here of our barrel. Kabuki Kid mentions about Don't Lose Your Head is a line from Highlander. Oh, so maybe a crossover of Highlander and the Headless Horseman. Chocolate and peanut butter. I can't believe that Highlander and the Headless Horseman hasn't already been mixed together in some sort of major blockbuster summer movie experience. It's just sitting there waiting to happen. You would of course have to keep the Headless Horseman side animated, and and Highlander live action, of course, that's a given. But and then you have the whole, you could license the movie as more versions of the game, like they do with Game of Thrones. There's always the artwork and paintings, and then live action stills for Game of Thrones or The Hobbit. So yeah, right there. Once we get that movie made, we will have a whole new set of, we can retheme, reapply new art, and sell this game over and over and over. So yeah, I agree. Toyota mentions, a memory game where you flip over the cards and then have to successfully match the decapitated heads to the bodies. The most successful matches win. Oh, there you go. That actually takes it even more into the Headless Horseman theme than I was thinking. I was putting on the kid gloves there for our kids game based on the Headless Horseman. You're right. Instead of matching two pictures of the same villager, you would have to have one card be the head that the Headless Horseman has collected, and the other card be the body that the Headless Horseman left behind. Gruesome, macabre, certainly. I would say we're going to need one of those the equivalent of an explicit lyrics parental advisory sticker on this game. Definitely not a game for everybody. Definitely not a game for hardly anybody. But I think though that if our motivation is just to sell this game based on the theme alone and just piggyback on that, then I think we need to continue forward. So and let me see here. One more here from, one more little cluster. Kabuki mentions maybe a solo game, which we hadn't thought of yet. A solo game where the Horseman is moving closer to Ichabod on the bridge using some sort of movement or time track, and Ichabod needs to reach the other side before being caught. That actually is... that is a less terrible idea than my memory matching game. So we're just going to shelve that one, and we're going to focus right on the terrible ideas right for now, Kabuki. Okay, let's keep some perspective here. But no, that's actually a good idea. Let's continue on to one more comment here. Toyota mentions that you could also have a werewolf theme using the Headless Horseman. That is an excellent idea. Okay. We are running short on time here. So I'm going to switch over. Wow. Okay. I should have just split I thought that this would not take as long, so I should have split it too. But here's what we're going to do. For the rest of the time that we have, we are going to play a game along here with you in the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a game, and it's going to be a kind of a speed password type game where I'm going to be giving out clues, and each of you in the comment is going to have to try and guess the what I am trying to get you to guess based on my clues. There's up to 6 clues for each one. Now, for example, if the phrase I was trying to get you to think of was cat, I might have my first clue be whiskers, then the second clue be meow, and so on and so forth. But here is the trick to it. Each clue that I give is going to reduce. Each clue that I give is going to reduce the amount of points available to the winner by a point. For example, we're going to start with 6 points. And again, if it was cat and I said whiskers as my first clue, if someone guessed cat based off whiskers, they would get 6 points. However, if no one got it based on whiskers, and then I went on to my second clue of meow, and then someone got it, well, it's no longer worth 6 points. It's reduced down to just 5 points. So the more clues that it takes me the more clues that I have to reveal, the fewer the points that are going to be available. Okay? Now, the other thing too is there's going to be several different rounds. Each round will be a different phrase I'm trying to get you to guess. Everybody gets one guess. Only your first guess per phrase, so your first guess per round, will be accepted. So you cannot spam the chat with idea, guess after guess after guess. Save your guess until you think you're right. What I'm going to do is that when I give out the clue, everyone who gets it right is going to potentially get some points. For example, back to our cat. If I said whiskers, and the very first, everyone knew it, and everyone put in cat as their answer in the chat, it's worth 6 points. The first person who said cat after the first clue of whiskers would get the full 6 points. Second person will get 4 points. And if a third person also got it, they would get 2 points. So we're gonna so there's up to 3 people will be earning points per time. But again, first one guess per person per round, and the points will be listed. Now, how we're going to do this is I'm going to put these in the chat. For example, if you're following along, I know there's probably a delay between me talking and the chat, which is why we're doing this in the chat. So for example, that Whiskers example, for round 1, if you look in your chat, you should see Whiskers 6 points list posted in your chat now. That is your signal that you guys can guess, and they're worth 6 points. If time goes by and nobody gets it, I will move on to the next one, which I would say meow as my second clue. And as soon as the next clue is posted, the points get reduced down. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing is, while we play this game, since this is speed based and everyone's going to be posting just one word or phrase for this portion of the game, do not bother with the TMG hashtag. That's going to slow you down. I don't want to slow you down. So just post your answer. Don't worry about the TMG hashtag. What we're going to do is we're going to play this until we run out of time. We have up to 6 questions, up to 6 phrases. I'm going to be keeping track of points. At the end of it, whoever wins the most points will win a $25 gift certificate to Top Shelf Gamer. Okay. What you'll need to do is, whoever wins will need to contact me through YouTube direct message, or a direct message on Twitter if you follow Pair of Dice Paradise on Twitter, but or Facebook. But I'm looking for, basically contact me through YouTube, through the messaging system in YouTube, and I will hook you up with a $25 gift certificate to Top Shelf Gamer. That is for our winner. Okay. Okay. So yes, like I said, there's a delay here between the chat and my talking, so I apologize. This is an experiment. We'll see how it goes. One last clue. All of the phrases that I'm getting you to guess will have something to do with either Pair of Dice Paradise or the Dice Tower Network. Okay, so that will hone in a little bit. Pair of Dice Paradise or the Dice Tower Network, something to do with those. All right, I'm going to give about 10 seconds after posting or so after each one. And so let's see how this goes. Here's round number 1. Our first clue being posted into the chat right now for round number 1. The first clue is board games, which narrows it down significantly, doesn't it? Sure. I'm sure everyone's going to jump right on that and waste their guess on board games. Okay. And now we're going to move on to the second clue. Which is bizarre. Oh, and Trevin, show regular in the chat, joins us. Trevin says he's late. Hi, Trevin. It's good to see you. Oh, Trevin. If you're wondering what was happening, I would say go back to like the 50-minute mark of the show, and I explained something we just started. If I explain it again, it'll take like 3 minutes, which we don't have that much time. Hey, good Kabuki. Okay, third clue. We have board games. We have bizarre. Third clue is secondhand. So something that's board games, bizarre, secondhand. People are saying they aren't people are saying that they are not seeing anything that we are typing. Let me see. Do you? I'm posting something in the chat that says, "Do you see this?" And oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to post something else here that says, "But do you see this?" Okay. I posted another thing that says, "But do you see this?" With lots of question marks and exclamation points. All right. And we have a winner here. Okay. We have a technical problem, it appears. I formatted my clues in a way that I put a little arrow before them to make them stand out. And apparently, if you do a little dash arrow, like dash, 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 greater than symbol as an arrow to make something point out, if you do that, the YouTube chat doesn't show it to people. So all of my clues are formatted in such a way that they are not showing up. So, ugh. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop the game here. But I'm going to honor what I set up. We had one round of the game so far, and the answer was Thrift Sift. And I apologize for the technical difficulties with this. That was totally my mistake, my error in the way that I formatted my text. However, Brian Fitting was the first person to correctly answer Thrift Sift. Bizarre secondhand board games. It was about Thrift Sift. So Brian is in the lead with 6 points, and which means due to technical difficulties, we are going to end the game here. So to honor what we set up, Brian, even though we did one round, you're the winner with the most points. So Brian, get in contact with me, and I will get you a $25 gift certificate to. I will get you a $25 gift certificate to Top Shelf Gamer, one of our awesome sponsors. Now, for everyone else, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take this and I'm going to retool it a little bit. It looks like once my text actually posts and shows up, it looks like that works. So that's good. So we're using today as kind of a test. I'm going to retool this a little bit over the next week, and I'm going to come back next week. And next week, we'll continue this and we'll play the game. We'll start over and we'll play the game proper. And we'll have another prize. And we will try it out. Now, like I said, I'll retool. I'll even try and get some more examples and actual instructions posted ahead of time as well. For now, we just don't have enough time to go through and rework, reformat everything that I had set up. So, that's the awesomeness sometimes of the live show experience, is sometimes things go according to plan, and sometimes things make you realize, oh, I got to try this a little bit differently next time. So congratulations to Brian, who won our incredibly long, detailed game. And I hope that everyone else will come back next week, where we'll kind of do our 50th episode celebration part 2. And we'll finish it up that way, and we'll play this neat game, and we'll go from there. And then after that, we'll continue later episodes. Of course, we'll certainly continue with regular discussions and stuff that we usually have. So in the meantime, though, I want to thank everyone who has taken the time to stop by and join us for this episode. I always enjoy doing this with you guys and doing some of these experiments and seeing what sticks and what needs retooling. Until the next time that we get a chance to get together, I want to just say that it's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys again in a week or two for the second half of our 50th episode celebration, apparently, for more fun, and we'll go from there, and I'll talk to you then. Until then, have a good week.